The Rocks are running out of time on their lease at Coors Field, and they want one thing in order to stay. The truth test to end all truth tests. We take on the Republican plan to replace Obamacare. Whether the Denver Zoo gets to keep its whoops giraffe. What to do if you think your dog might be a wolf. And what if it was news when a serious incident is handled correctly? Just a thought. Next. The Colorado Rockies are coming up on the end of their 22-year lease at Coors Field. And the Rockies want to pull off a trade that would change the face of Lodo. Here's what you need to know going into this. Coors does not pay a naming rights fee for the field, so the stadium district, which represents us taxpayers, has to find money for upkeep and improvement somewhere else. And that brings us to the Rockies' idea for a blockbuster trade. Here's Aaron Matus.
When the Colorado Rockies make a trade, you might expect a star player leaving and unfortunately not getting much in return. Before this season even begins, the Rockies are proposing a trade, but it doesn't involve anyone in uniform. The team wants this parking lot that sits between Jackson's, the Chop House, and Fido's. And what they're offering in exchange is to essentially pay for 30 years maintenance and upkeep of Coors Field. Here's what we know from public meetings over the last year. According to a study commissioned by the Rockies, Coors Field needs about $7 million a year for the next 30 years to keep the stadium up to date and relevant. The club is offering to cover that $7 million by renegotiating a new lease and buying this parking lot from the taxpayer-owned district that also manages Coors Field. The Rockies would keep the cash from its development, likely a mix of office, residential, and retail, possibly with some Rockies-related spaces like a Hall of Fame. The district considered leasing the parking lot to a developer itself, but the Rockies vetoed those proposals. Now we know why. The Rockies want to get into the real estate business. Will the Rockies be sliding into a new home? Of course not, but the team has 2 weeks to agree on an extension or a new lease. Opening day is just 3 weeks away.
All right, so the Rockies are not going to open their season at Grandview. They'll be at Coors Field. Pro sports teams grabbing up land around stadiums. I've heard this before.
Well, it's all about money. Acquiring land's a good way to do that. Hate to bring up the Patriots, but the Kraft Group, which owns the stadium and the team, has an outdoor mall outside of Gillette Stadium. Ziggy Wilf's new building in downtown Minneapolis, he's stockpiled land there to build in and around the stadium. Everyone's building in Lodo. Why shouldn't the Rockies?
Why shouldn't the Rockies? All right, very interesting story. Yeah. Aaron, thank you. Police shot and killed 18-year-old Alexander Metz yesterday in a park near Cotton Creek Elementary. Those basic facts you can find on every media outlet in town. If parents were complaining about how the incident was handled at the school, that surely would be everywhere as well. But our Steve Steger heard a different story.
You can almost predict the way reporters cover a story like this. Day one, an officer-involved shooting puts a school on lockdown, in this case, Cotton Creek Elementary. Day two, reporters talk to parents angry about the way a school handles said lockdown.
So let's check their Facebook outrage. I couldn't be happier with the school's response to the situation and for keeping parents informed and updated as quickly as possible. Wait, this isn't outrage.
The school never ceases to impress me on their safety precautions.
Stephanie Harris's son was on the playground when the incident started, and she has nothing but great things to say.
It makes me feel comfortable as a parent to say that they're here.
It really worked pretty seamlessly.
Cotton Creek principal Bill Kempsel says everything went according to the practiced plan.
They blew the whistle, the kids followed directions, they hightailed it into the building.
First the lockdown, then a lockout. Then, when the school wasn't sure if the situation was completely clear, the reunification process. In the end, they got all 600 plus students reunited with their parents and guardians in 55 minutes.
I ask kids, what's the number one thing that your parents expect when you come to school? And very frequently they know the answer, and the answer is that we're safe.
A response that worked so well, we couldn't find a negative comment on the Cotton Creek Parents Facebook page.
We have parents who brought in coffee for staff and bagels and cookies and so on. It was pretty delightful.
For Next, I'm Steve Steger.
You know, it's been a while since we asked, is the A-line working today? Our old friend, the train to the plane, working, not working? Sorta. There's some mechanical issues this morning, standard stuff for that train. Everything's back on track. That would be rail lingo. The next graphic I'm going to ask our team to make will say, does Attorney General Jeff Sessions still hate marijuana today? Yes.
I think medical marijuana has been hyped. maybe too much. It's possible that some dosages can be constructed in a way that might be beneficial. I acknowledge that.
AG Sessions again said today that federal law against marijuana remains in effect in every state that, quote, is not eviscerated because a state ceases to enforce the law in that state. So lots of words from the AG. That's not new. We've yet to see evidence, though, that he's taking action against marijuana in Colorado. We'll keep listening and watching. The 9 News story about a family in Aurora fighting to keep its dog, which could be a wolf hybrid, has blown up the interwebs. The family is suing to save Capone, and today a judge held the case over until next week. We were curious, how exactly do you know if your dog is a wolf hybrid? I am certain that Porter is not. We like to joke that he's half cat, but really the only way to know if your dog has a little wolf in his blood is to pay for a DNA test. But honestly, don't sweat it unless you're living in Aurora. Wolf hybrids are not banned in Boulder or the county or Boulder County, Arapahoe County, Jefferson County, you're cool, even in Denver. So that's right, in Denver, pit bulls are banned, but if your dog is part wolf, no problem. Our next question came from a member of our team today. Aaron, a producer who talks with a lot of you on social media, was wondering, can the Denver Zoo keep Dobby the giraffe? He was the birth control whoopsie whose birth came as a surprise. It's not up to the Denver Zoo, and it's too early to tell at this point. He'll be here for a year or two as he grows up alongside his mom. The Association of Zoos and Aquariums will determine whether Dobby gets to stay in Denver or if he's moved to another accredited zoo. If he stays here, Dobby will need to be neutered so he doesn't get into fights with his father, Dikembe, which sounds complicated, and it's got to be a giraffe thing. Let's talk about truth for a moment and how we get to the truth in an age of alternative facts and accusations of fake news. This is Sunshine Week, when journalists across America ask you to consider if you're better off knowing what your government is doing or whether government can be trusted to work like one of Ron Popeil's kitchen appliances, just set it and forget it. I am joined here at this table this evening by Ari Armstrong, the libertarian-minded writer, and also Jay Seaton, publisher of the Grand Junction Sentinel. And Jay, Republican State Senator Ray Scott called your paper fake news. It's not. We're not going to debate that here. But you're threatening to sue him for libel, which is why he says he wouldn't show up here tonight. Journalists have spent millions of dollars trying to fight libel that would restrict speech. Are you not playing with fire here?
I understand that typical response that the free press responds with more coverage of an issue. I consider this very different. This is not criticism of what we do. This is a direct assault on our credibility, which for a newspaper is our only real asset.
Have you attempted to patch things up with Senator Scott? You're going to be covering him presumably for years to come. There's nothing to be gained by media outlets fighting with public officials like this.
I have enormous respect for the judicial system. The only valuable currency in the court system is truth. And so I would like to see how a court actually handles this kind of false allegation.
Okay, so where's the suit then? You've been talking about this for a little while now. Shots have been fired on both sides. If you're going to sue the man, then sue the man.
Well, I practiced law for 13 years, and I know better than to shoot first and aim second. So I want to get all my ducks in a row before I take action.
All right, let me ask you this. Are conservatives well served by labeling every story they don't like fake news? At the lead of President Trump, who anytime he sees something he doesn't care for, he tweets out fake news.
Yes, and I don't think it applies just to conservatives. Anybody who cries wolf on fake news, I think, is going to undermine their credibility, especially when Ray Scott himself has been shown to reveal some fake news himself, as Jason Salzman has pointed out in some of his writing on this issue. But I don't see this lawsuit necessarily as going anywhere. But I think that's basically right. If you call something fake news and then you can't back it up, if you're going to call a story fake news, have arguments. What's fake about it? What's wrong? And I don't think it's a problem to necessarily say that an article is fake or has factual problems, but be willing to back it up. And in this case, I don't think that he had the grounds to say that.
And you know, the Trump administration's favorite example of fake news is the reporter from Time who mistakenly said that the Martin Luther King bust had been removed from the Oval Office when it had simply been moved. That is not fake news. That is a mistake. We make them here. Everybody makes mistakes. I would think people need to differentiate.
Yeah, the main difference is, are you trying to mislead people or are you trying to set the record straight? And when you make a mistake, you're very quick to correct it. I've made mistakes myself and I've had to correct myself. So that's the key differentiator.
This conversation will continue on an interactive Facebook Live event at 6:30 tonight, Getting to Truth in the Age of Alternative Facts. Our panel will include these gentlemen and grow to include experts on journalism, politics, as well as open records law. That is the key that opens the door. So please join me and them on the Next or the 9 News Facebook page at 6:30 tonight. And please bring your questions and comments. They will help guide what should be, well, no, I promise, it'll be a lively discussion. Next, we'll dive into the Republican replacement for Obamacare. Everything you wanted to know. We have the man with the answers. Colorado has a volcano that's technically active. Had no idea until today. This week's weather reminds me of your mom. What, do you think I was going to say hot? No, it's lovely. The weather and your mom are lovely. And someone in Colorado is missing their goat. Pet goat, not a farm goat. Also, it likes crackers. Next. Is this your goat? Look closely now. Don't get another man's goat by accident. Windsor Severance firefighters found the goat wandering around Weld County Road 74 in Severance last night. They got a call late at night from people concerned that the goat was going to cause a wreck. They corralled it and took it back to the fire station where they made a little home for it until animal control came by this morning.
Well, animal control, obviously is not open in the middle of the night, so they decided to make a makeshift pen out of the dumpster enclosure, so they moved everything out of the dumpster enclosure.
Dumpster, the goat, ate a ton of crackers while hanging out with the firefighters, and now the goat's over at the Larimer County Humane Society, where the owner has 5 days to claim it, or it goes up for adoption. This is what it must be like to be a meteorologist in Hawaii. Today, beautiful. Tomorrow, cooler but beautiful. Day after that, gorgeous. Next day as well. Weekends looking sunny and hot, close to 80. Enjoy this mild stretch, and let's hope we don't pay for it too much and reduce snowpack or increased fire danger. Have you seen the article that's floating all over the internet today about the Dotsero volcano? It says there's an active volcano right here in Colorado. Technically true, but let's clarify active. The last time the Dotsero volcano erupted was relatively recently as volcanoes go, 4,200 years ago. Since it's less than 10,000 years ago, it is classified as technically active and the only one in Colorado. We talked to 2 scientists and they say, don't expect much out of this volcano, and that's good news. You hear active volcano and your heart kind of skips a beat, but the seismic activity in our neck of the woods is cooling down, and it has been for millions of years. The USGS out of Golden doesn't have that .0 volcano on a single watch list and hasn't seen a thing from it. We're about to really get into Republican claims about their replacement for the Affordable Care Act. Who wins, who loses, what's truth, and what's spin. And we check in on my hero to see where she is on the ultimate brewery trip. Next. I try my best to learn about stuff for a living and then explain it to you here. So I'm actually kind of embarrassed about how little I understand and how little I could explain about the Republican replacement plan for Obamacare. Politics guy Brandon Ritteman is about to deliver the clearest explanation I've heard to date. This is not simple. It's not partisan. It's a truth test, and hopefully it'll make us all a little smarter.
A version of this ad is running in more than a dozen markets around the country, meant to help Republicans in swing districts as they handle questions about what they're doing with health care. In Colorado, the ad's about Mike Coffman, but no matter who your congressperson is, strap in for the next few minutes, and this truth test should help you learn a lot more about what the GOP replacement plan would and wouldn't do.
Thank Congressman Mike Coffman for keeping his promise and replacing the Affordable Care Act with the better health care you deserve.
It is true Mike Coffman said he would vote for the American Health Care Act in its first draft form. His office has backed off of that a little bit while they review this newest CBO report. And while the plan could change from here, we're fact-checking the details in that first draft. The ad says it's going to give you
more choices.
That all depends on who you are. If you're shopping for your own plan, you will likely get more choices because the GOP bill removes those bronze, silver, gold plan standards. That means you'll be able to choose a plan that offers less coverage than the minimums required by Obamacare and end up paying more if you get sick. If you're lower income on Medicaid, you're likely to have fewer choices because the bill would give states less money for Medicaid, and Colorado is going to have to decide whether to stop offering it to some people or come up with the money to keep it going like it is. And if you're like most people and you get your coverage from work, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says the law will encourage some employers to stop offering health plans, but most employees will have more or less the same choices they do now.
And lower costs.
Not for everyone. Costs of plans offered by employers shouldn't change much, but the individual plans sold today on the exchanges would. There are winners and losers in this bill. Older people are in that losing group. The bill allows plans to charge older patients higher premiums than they can right now, up to 5 times higher than younger patients. And it changes the federal subsidies for buying insurance on the individual marketplace. The CBO estimates a single person making $26,000 a year would pay $250 less a year if they're 21, $700 more per year if they're age 40, and $12,900 more a year if they're age 64. That's roughly half their income. But if you make more money, you could save on premiums no matter how old you are, because the new tax credits would be given to people with higher incomes as well. The CBO figures overall premiums on the individual market will be higher than they would have been under Obamacare in the first few years, but then go up less than they would have after that. The CBO also predicts deductibles and out-of-pocket costs on those plans will be higher than they would have been otherwise.
Putting doctors and patients in charge again.
This is rhetoric. It's really too vague to fact check. You're in charge of your health care today. You will be tomorrow. This debate is about how you're going to be covered.
No more big government penalties.
This is false. The bill replaces the Obamacare penalty with a different penalty. The ACA has a tax penalty if you don't buy insurance. The Republican plan has a 30% penalty on individual premiums if you do buy insurance after you've gone without it for more than 63 days in a single year. It's a different way of trying to pressure you into staying covered. That penalty would be paid to your insurance company, not the government, but the government would require them to charge it.
Or job-killing mandates.
This needs context. Technically, the requirement for people to buy insurance or companies to offer it wouldn't go away, but the bill would make those mandates more or less toothless because the new penalty only happens if you do buy insurance after going without it.
and real protections for people with pre-existing conditions.
This makes the new plan sound better than Obamacare when in fact it's nothing new. The Republican plan wouldn't change the rules Obamacare already created for pre-existing conditions. Bottom line, this ad oversimplifies a complicated plan and spins it to sound like everybody's going to be better off, when in fact, this plan would be good for some people and bad for others if it becomes law. The key word there, if. Because plans change. Just like the Democrats did with Obamacare, Republicans are arguing over what needs to be in its replacement. And the health care law we end up with could end up looking a lot different than this first draft. With your Truth Test, I'm Brandon Ritterman.
You can check Brandon's sources for all his truth tests every time on 9news.com. Liz Thomas is my hero. The urban hiker hoofing it to every brewery in Denver in a week, 68 miles total. She hiked 8 miles and hit 3 breweries today. Go, Liz, go. We invite you to tune in now to a special Facebook Live event on the 9 News and the Next Page, Getting to Truth in an Age of Alternative Facts. A panel discussion about politics, journalism, open records, how we best can serve you as a community, and what the media should and should not be doing in the months ahead. Dee closes it out tonight, says Kyle's camera is weird. He looks too narrow. Dee, that's a special camera I asked for. Put on a little winter weight, okay? All right, I'll be back next time.